Please join me in welcoming Deborah Dawn.
Thank you, Mimi. I was really deeply moved when Maura Grogan invited me to introduce her today. I've known Maura in many capacities. She's been my boss, my mentor, and most importantly, my close friend and one of my biggest supporters. I had heard about Maura over the years, but it wasn't until 2007 when she came to work at the university and became my boss. It turned out that she was also chair of the Women's Foundation board at the time. And I had been involved, as you heard, in the early years of the foundation, but had taken a break. But Maura, being Maura, she reeled me back into the work of this important organization, and it continues to be near and dear to both of us. Maura is going to tell you more about herself and the life experiences that shaped her interest in supporting women and girls. What I want to tell you about is why she's important to me. Maura's husband, Steve Cornell, likes to say she is an organizational therapist, bringing her considerable expertise and thoughtfulness to organizations like the Women's Foundation that wants to improve lives through stronger, better funded, and more effective institutions. Maura obviously gets the organizational big picture, but she also really understands how important people are, her staff, donors, board members, and other volunteers. When she was my boss at the university, Maura really took the time to get to know me, to understand my strengths, to listen and challenge me, and to give me very focused and constructive feedback. In other words, she was a fantastic mentor. That kind of support from a boss was really a first for me. Maura is what I call a big person. She was a competitive ice skater throughout her childhood, an ice hockey player at Yale, and a 1976 Olympian in the luge. She's a wide variety of professional experience from Native American tribes, bioscience, architecture, public television, you name it. She's really very smart and quite irreverent, as our friend Kevin Hall can attest. She has a terrific sense of humor, and she is one tough coach. We often climb Tumamock Hill together with our friend Holly Altman. Both of them are in much better shape than I am, but Maura pushes me to keep up. I do a lot of complaining, but I appreciate it. More importantly, at least to me, is that she has a huge heart and a huge capacity to care about other people, and she is kind and a good listener. Maura was a terrific boss and mentor, and she's now a wonderful friend. I am really very, very lucky to have her in my life. If you don't already know Maura Grogan, you want to get to know this woman. Maura?
Thank you, Deborah, for that lovely introduction. And I'm vain, so I'm taking these off. We're still planning on hiking Tumamock on Sunday, right? The past couple months leading up to today have been overwhelming for me. I have received congratulations from friends, neighbors, colleagues, people I hardly know. So many of you have given gifts to the Women's Foundation in my honor. I am incredibly grateful for your generosity to me and, more importantly, to the Women's Foundation. I especially want to thank my pals Candy Grogan and Jane Regal. They took on the fundraising effort in my honor, wrote letters, made phone calls, and had to write a lot more thank you notes than they ever expected. Thank you, Candy and Jane, for your friendship and support. I got involved in the work of the Women's Foundation a decade ago because it makes me mad that women are still treated as less than. It hurts me when I hear a woman say, "I can't, I don't know how, I'm not strong enough, I don't deserve it." I have stayed involved because the Women's Foundation does important work in this community, and because of people like Candy and Jane and Deborah and many of you in this room today. When I was a little girl, I didn't realize that my upbringing was unusual or privileged. My Army officer dad played Barbie with me and taught me to love the language of Shakespeare. My school teacher mom showed me how to fix a leaking faucet and, by example, how to manage the family finances. Both of them encouraged me to try new activities and learn the skills I needed in life, whether it was my dad making sure I knew how to change a flat tire when I first started driving, or my mom teaching me how to sew. Over the years, I've come to understand that the real privilege that I grew up with was the conviction, nourished in me by my parents and coaches, that I could do pretty much anything I set my mind to. Even when I fell, which I did a lot on the ice, both literally and figuratively, I was taught to get up, dust myself off, and try again. I will always be grateful for that. It is because I know I am privileged that I feel compelled to give back, and the Women's Foundation has allowed me to do that. In partnership with many great organizations, the Women's Foundation improves the lives of individual women and girls, some of whom you've heard from today. But it also addresses equity and opportunity for all women in our region. On the surface, it looks like we're focusing on specific problems, such as providing shelter from domestic violence, teaching women to read, showing girls how to be philanthropists, introducing women to a new life in the U.S. after years of living in refugee camps. What these efforts really do, though, is give these women and girls what I assumed was my right growing up: the strength to take risks, the skills to figure things out, and the knowledge that someone, in fact many people, think you are worthy, think you are valued, and think you are loved. When I was on the board of the Women's Foundation, I urged the board to fund more research on the status of women in our region. Our first foray was a survey of nonprofits, donors, and community leaders, and it told us what we suspected. The community lacked measurable independent data on the status of women. We realized that we needed this data both to better target our grant making and to measure over time whether we were having any impact. Our next project was completed in 2010 on the status of women and girls in the 3 counties where we give grants: Pima, Cochise, and Santa Cruz. With that data, we started getting a much clearer picture, and it wasn't pretty. For example, we learned that nearly 16% of all females in southern Arizona lived below the federal poverty level, and 38% of single female-headed households with children were poor. We also confirmed that poverty discriminates. 13% of white women were poor, jumping to almost 25% for Hispanic and 37% for Native American women. Most recently, the Women's Foundation published the 2012 research study called the Self-Sufficiency Standard for Arizona, which goes beyond the simplistic federal poverty level and asks instead how much a family really needs to earn to make ends meet without public or private assistance. Here in Pima County, a single mom with 1 preschooler and 1 school-aged child must earn more than $22 an hour to be considered self-sufficient in a county where the median wage for women is $11.50 an hour. We all know that women earn less than men, even when doing the same jobs. Recently, Arizona made the news, on a positive vein for once. that we do better than the national average in the wage gap, though women still run well behind. However, another study looking at results by congressional districts showed that District 8, which includes about half of Tucson, posted the largest wage gap in the state, with working men out-earning women by almost $12,500 annually. You can poke all kinds of holes in the wage gap arguments if you want to. You can say that women take time off from their careers to raise children or care for aging parents. You can say that women don't negotiate as well as men. You can say that women go into lower paying professions or don't work as many hours. Just imagine, though, if things were at parity. A national study conducted by the American Association of University Women in 2012 found that over the course of a 35-year career, an American woman with a college degree will earn $1.2 million less than a man with the same education. They concluded that closing the pay gap by raising women's wages would have a stimulus effect that would grow the U.S. economy by at least 3%. In contrast, the $800 billion stimulus package passed in 2009 grew GDP by less than half of that. Let's bring that back to a local level. Nearly 48% of the employed civilian population in Pima County is female. If those working women had the same median wage as men, we would have an additional $2.1 billion in annual gross wages to bolster our economy. I know that earnings aren't the only measure of a good life. In fact, far from it. But if we are to improve the quality of life for everyone, we must pay attention to women's wages and not just focus on increasing the number of biotech or aerospace companies that locate here. We can do better, and we should do better, and if we work together, we will do better. While I sometimes cringe when I tell people I live in Arizona, I am always proud to tell them I am a Tucsonan. We are a community of people who help each other, who give of our time, our money, and our hearts. I know it is daunting when you hear statistics like these to imagine how you, as one person, can make a difference. Here are a few of my suggestions. Nurture the strength in your daughters and granddaughters. Make sure they know how to stand up for what they believe in and how to negotiate for it too. Show them how to fix a leaking faucet. At work, mentor other women. Take them with you to your next business meeting, and then explain why you said what you did when so-and-so said such and such. Promote them. Pay them the same as you do men. Most of all, keep being generous towards women's issues, stay vigilant about inequity, and keep telling the women around you that they are worthy, they are valued, and they are loved. Thank you.
Maura, please accept these gifts as recognition for your commitment and support of women and girls in Southern Arizona.